the need for security and protection. A man who understands human nature knows that the desire for security isn't a simple preference, it's an instinct burned into the psyche. I'm not talking about money or a roof over his head, that's for beginners. I'm talking about a psychological strength, an unshakable bastion in a chaotic world. The average man reacts to crises by panicking and seeking solace in them. Reversing roles and losing all hope can end. Man of high value, instead, is the calm in the storm. He doesn't participate in the chaos. He observes it from above and plots an escape route. When she feels the ground shake, her eyes don't seek an equal to tremble with, they seek a pillar. Presenting herself as that rock, that beacon of certainty, isn't an act of kindness. It's the first move in a complex mind game. It is a demonstration of strategic superiority that conditions her to see you as her only viable option for emotional survival. A concept that she herself Machiavelli applied to the domain of a principality. The key to this male not about solving all their problems, that would make you a servant. The key is to show that you have the emotional control and the ability to navigate any crisis without flinching. Let's take an example. She loses her job. The average man despairs, tells her everything will be okay in a trembling voice, and passes on his own anxiety. The strategist, on the other hand, listens with icy calm, lets the emotional storm pass, and then, with disarming firmness, says, "I understand. First thing tomorrow morning we'll make a list of your strengths, update your profile, and contact 3 recruiters. Here's the battle plan." Do you see the difference? You're not offering tissues, you're offering a treasure map in the middle of a maze. This demonstration of competence and absolute command of the situation is a subtle way of handling that makes her feel protected and, at the same time, dependent on your leadership. She won't just give you her trust, she'll hand you the keys to the castle. Think of this like a game of chess, while the other players move their pawns erratically. Reacting to immediate threats, you are fortifying your position as king. Every time you prove to be the anchor in her chaos, you are building the walls of your fortress. She may have friends to laugh with, colleagues to work with, but she will only have you when real danger lurks. This association between your presence and a sense of safety is the foundation upon which true security is built. I respect she begins to understand, on a subconscious level, that your well-being and hers are intrinsically linked. Criticizing you, challenging your judgment, would be like sabotaging her own bomb shelter. This isn't about love, it's about a deeply rooted logic of survival. A leader doesn't demand loyalty, they craft it through their calculated actions, making themselves indispensable. The mistake of modern man is to believe that security is something that can be bought. They boast of their cars, their apartments, but they crumble at the first sign of emotional uncertainty. Man of high value understands that true capital is internal stability. His emotional control is his most valuable asset. He projects a future, he has a mission, a purpose that goes beyond the vicissitudes of everyday life. When a woman enters the orbit of such a man, she doesn't just feel safe. She feels like she's joining a journey with a destination. He's the captain of the ship, and even if the waves are violent, she knows he won't abandon the helm. This certainty is addictive. It's the kind of concealment that does not need to shout to be obeyed. It is the basis of all lasting influence, and the first door you must cross to master the mind game of relationships. Once you've established this framework, where you are the undisputed source of stability and direction, you've gained a monumental tactical advantage. You've become her magnetic north. Every important decision, every moment of doubt, will instinctively lead her to seek your guidance. Not because you force her, but because you've conditioned her perception to associate your figure with certainty and survival. You've transformed her most primal need into your greatest asset. But beware, building the fortress is only the beginning. Because once the walls are up and she feels safe, that's when the real mind game moves into a much more volatile and powerful realm. Their emotions, and knowing how to navigate that minefield, is what separates strategists from mere soldiers. Topic 2. The inclination towards emotionality. If the first pillar is security, the second is mastery of the most unpredictable battlefield of all, the emotional terrain. An ordinary man drowns in this ocean, reacting to every wave of feeling with his own emotions, creating a tsunami of drama and losing any semblance of peace. Can the strategist, however, sees this whirlwind not as a threat, but as a current in his favor. He understands a truth that Machiavelli taught. Logic is a useful tool, but emotion is the engine that drives human decisions. Whoever controls a woman's emotional flow controls her actions. Thisman game, you don't win with arguments. You win by orchestrating feelings. Man of high value, he does not let himself be carried away by hysteria or euphoria. He remains in the eye of the storm, with emotional control absolute, and from that calm he directs the wind. He is the conductor of a symphony orchestra, and its emotions are the violins he makes play at will. The application of this male strategist decides, like a coin. On one side, there is the calculated generation of affection. The naive man gives affection freely and constantly, devaluing it until it means nothing. The master of handling Sybil delivers it like a reward, an unexpected gesture of affection after a period of slight distance. a specific and potent compliment in a moment of vulnerability, an act of compassion that seems magnanimous but is designed to generate emotional debt. It's not about being fake, it's about being aware of the impact of your actions. Every display of affection is an investment, a piece placed on the board for a future move. You make her feel understood, adored, and in that state of emotional ecstasy, her critical judgment dissolves like sugar in water, leaving her completely receptive to your influence and consolidating your kin. On the other hand, there is the darker, and often more effective side of the coin, the use of calculated fear. I'm not talking about crude threats, that's for brainless thugs. I'm talking about a far more elegant maneuver. It's the art of strategic retreat, measured silence, the distance that sows doubt. It's making her feel, for an instant, the chill that your absence would bring. This subtle fear of loss is a more powerful motivator than any promise of love. When she feels she might be losing your interest or your respect, their survival instinct kicks in and they'll do whatever it takes to regain the stability and warmth of your approval. It's a way of handling Gadvan that requires emotional control impeccable on your part. You must be able to create that tension without giving in to the temptation to immediately diffuse it. It's a silent reminder of who has taken in the dynamic, reaffirming your position without saying a single word. The ultimate goal of this game, it's not about turning her into a willless puppet, but about making her will align with yours naturally. When you master her emotional spectrum, you can frame your desires as if they were the solution to her fears or the culmination of her hopes. Do you want her to move to your city? You don't ask her. You paint an emotional picture of the incredible life you would have together, of the security and passion that awaits, while subtly making her feel the precariousness of her current situation. She won't make the decision because you told her to. She will make it because she feels it's what her heart yearns for and what her mind needs to be at peace. A true man of high value, he doesn't impose his will. He whispers it in the language of emotions, making his ideas blossom in her mind as if they were his own. That is the essence of male strategy in Vessel and Lethal. Mastering her need for security gave you the keys to the castle, but learning to direct her emotions makes you the king who rules from the throne. Now she depends on you not only for protection, but also for her emotional balance. You are her calm and, if necessary, her controlled storm. You have established a level of influence that few men even understand. However, there is another level of influence. One that appeals not to need or the heart, but directly to the ego. A vulnerability so human and so powerful that, if pressed with a proper skill, it can cause the most intelligent woman to lower all her defenses of her own volition. And that lever, my friend, is vanity. Topic 3. Vanity and the desire to be admired. We've talked about the need for security and mastery of emotions, but now we enter a more subtle and, if possible, more powerful terrain, the ego. Every human being, as Machiavelli, has an insatiable thirst for recognition and admiration. It's the silent fuel that fuels her ambitions and defines herself. The common man throws around crass generic compliments like "you're so pretty," empty words that drift away. The strategist, on the other hand, uses flattery like a surgeon's scalpel. He doesn't praise the obvious, he praises what she strives to project. He identifies the quality she's most proud of: her intelligence, her creativity, her discipline, and validates it with lethal precision. This isn't a simple compliment. It's an act of handling psychological message that tells her, "I see you, I understand your greatness." By doing this, you not only win her favor, you become the mirror that reflects her idealized version of herself, and no one willingly breaks their favorite mirror. The secret of this technique lies not in the quantity, but in the quality and specificity of the praise. It is a Marley strategy, a sniper, not a machine gun. Watch, listen, and find that hidden point of pride. Is she an executive struggling in a man's world? Don't tell her her suit is nice. Tell her the way you disarmed your opponent in that meeting, with pure logic and calm, was a lesson in. Is she an artist who doubts her talent? She ignores her most popular works and praises a detail in a forgotten sketch. That stroke reveals a boldness that most wouldn't even dare attempt. This kind of validation completely disarms her. In that moment, you stop being just another man and become one of the few who truly gets her. You're playing a mind game in a higher level, creating a bond of exclusivity and making her lower her guard, preparing her for your future suggestions, which she will now receive with an open mind and a willing heart. Think of strategic praise as a Trojan horse. It's a magnificent and seemingly harmless gift you offer at the gates of her mental citadel. She, flattered and trusting, opens the doors to receive it. But once inside, the true purpose is revealed. The horse is filled with your soldiers, your influence, your ideas, your goals. Once a person feels genuine admiration for you, they will develop a subconscious desire to maintain that admiration. They will fear disappointing you because that would mean losing that potent source of validation. This subtle fear gives you immense. It allows you to guide her, correct her, and influence her decisions without generating resistance. She will become more compliant, not out of submission, but to remain worthy of thy respect and to the high esteem you have shown him. And man of high value, he doesn't use these tools in isolation. He combines them into a symphony of influence. First, he establishes himself as her rock, her source of security, topic 1. Then, he becomes the master of her emotional climate, topic 2. And finally, he positions himself as her ego's primary validator, topic 3. See the big picture. You've created a perfect ecosystem of dependency. She comes to you for security, balance, and validation. Your opinion becomes the most important, your guidance the most desired. This holistic approach is the essence of male strategy advanced. You leave nothing to chance. Every interaction is an opportunity to strengthen your framework and to deepen the roots of your influence. Always maintaining emotional allows you to execute every move with the coolness of a chess grandmaster. Now that you've massaged her ego and become the source of her validation, her natural defenses are at an all-time low. She's receptive, eager to please, and far less likely to question your motives. The path is clear. But the true art of war, as great generals know, lies not in winning battles by a landslide, but in achieving objectives without actually fighting them. There's an almost universal aversion to direct confrontation that, if you understand it, will allow you to move your pieces around the board and achieve your ends without her even noticing the game has changed phases. And exploiting that aversion is the next level in this manual offcan topic. For aversion to direct conflict, the average man believes that thickened is demonstrated in confrontation. He raises his voice, imposes his point of view, and runs headlong into a wall of resistance, wondering why it always ends in a pitched battle. The strategist knows the truth. Direct confrontation is a failure of strategy. It is the resource of the brute, not of the master of man game. Human nature, and particularly female nature, tends to abhor open conflict. They see it as a threat to harmony, a fracture in connection. And this aversion is a backdoor that a man of high value can use to enter undetected. Instead of kicking down the front door, simply turn the handle on the service door that is always left open. Understand that Thickenrill is not the one that imposes itself. It is the one that infiltrates and settles without the other realizing the occupation. This is a lesson taken directly from the manual of Machiavelli. The indirect route is always the most effective. That the practical application of this strategy is the art of suggestion. Never give a direct order if you can plant an idea. For example, instead of saying, "Don't go out with that friend, I don't trust her," which invites a discussion about trust and freedom, you plant a seed. You say, calmly and seemingly concerned, "I've noticed that whenever you spend time with X, you come back drained and moody. I'm worried about the energy she's draining from you. You seem so much happier and lighter when she's not around." See the move. You don't attack the friend. You position yourself as the guardian of her well-being. You don't forbid, you suggest a negative correlation. You let her connect the dots and come to the conclusion that this friendship is hurting her. It's a form of fondling so elegant that she believe it was her decision, and she even thank you for it. You've achieved your goal without a single second of conflict. To take this to the next level, you must master the art of framing. It's about presenting your desires in such a way that they seem like the most logical and least contentious option. A classic technique is the anchor. Do you want her to agree to go to a family event that bores her? You don't ask her directly. First, you mention a much worse option. "My cousin wants to organize a 3-day camping trip with everyone without showers. Crazy. You let the idea horrify her. Then, the next day, casually you say, "Thank goodness we'll just make dinner on Saturday. It'll be boring, but at least we'll sleep in our own bed." Suddenly, dinner, which was your real goal, seems like a relief, a lesser evil. You've avoided an argument and gained her cooperation by presenting an alternative that makes her feel like she's winning. It requires emotional control not to give away your game, but the results are spectacular. This approach not only helps you get what you want, but also builds respect and positions you as armor of high-value. Women don't respect the man who constantly creates drama. They respect the one who navigates social complexities calmly and effectively. The man who can align reality with his will without raising his voice is seen as superior. Someone with a true sense of belonging can internal while others wear themselves out in pointless arguments that erode attraction. You build a reputation as a problem solver, a peacemaker who, curiously, always seems to get your way. She doesn't see you as a manipulator. She sees you as wise and diplomatic, someone easy to be with because life with you is simpler and more harmonious. A harmony that, of course, you're designed by avoiding confrontation. You move like a ghost through their defenses, guiding their decisions without setting off any alarm bells. You've learned to whisper where others shout, to suggest where others demand. It's an indispensable tool in any mind game thought is worth its salt. However, the effectiveness of this indirect tactic is multiplied exponentially when the person you are facing is not fully aware of their own strengths and capabilities, because an opponent who doesn't know the value of their own pieces on the chessboard is an opponent who is destined to lose. And the art of keeping a woman in that subtle fog of self-perception, where she doesn't recognize the fulcrum which it possesses, is the next crucial lesson of our strategy. Topic 5. The tendency to underestimate one's own power, a fundamental principle in any form of warfare, whether on the battlefield or in the mind game of relationships. is that you should never allow your opponent to know your true strength. A lion who thinks he's a cat is a docile adversary. Man of high value understands this perfectly. His goal is not to oppress women but to carefully manage their perception of can that she herself holds. While weak men feel intimidated by a strong woman and try to extinguish her light, the strategist bathes her in a light that he himself controls. He praises her, celebrates her, but always within a framework that reinforces his own position as the conductor of the orchestra. The objective of this subtle handling is to keep her in a state of slight dependence, where she recognizes her own value, but sees yours as indispensable to activate her full potential. It is a lesson that Machiavelli applied to government. Let your subjects feel prosperous, but make sure they know that prosperity emanates from you. The execution of this male strategy, it requires exquisite finesse. It's not about telling her you can't do it without me. It's about demonstrating it with actions. It's taking the initiative in crucial decisions, finances, long-term plans, crisis resolution. It's listening to her ideas carefully, validating to them, and then enhancing them with your strategic vision. Framing the ultimate success as a joint achievement, but under your direction. When she achieves something on her own, the strategist doesn't see her as a threat. He praises her in a particular way. I always knew you had that ability. You just needed the right environment for it to flourish. With that simple phrase, you reaffirm your role as the catalyst, the gardener who cultivated her talent. You maintain your position of advantage not by minimizing her, but by magnifying yourself as the key piece in the equation, thus consolidating your cannon's dependence. The greatest danger for the strategist is the awakening, the moment she realizes she can be her own anchor of security, her own emotional manager, and her own source of validation. In that instant, she ceases to be a piece on your board and becomes a player in her own game. Your influence evaporates. Thy respect becomes negotiable, and the whole house of cards you've built comes tumbling down. That's why a man of high value, he's on a constant, but subtle, campaign of proving his worth. He's always one step ahead, always more competent, always has a more solid plan. He doesn't compete with her, he simply operates in a higher league, making the idea of total independence seem less appealing and more arduous than the symbiotic and advantageous partnership he offers. Her emotional control, it is key here to never show insecurity in the face of her successes. This connects directly to the creation of what might be called a gilded cage. It's an environment so safe, stimulating and well managed by you that the idea of leaving is unthinkable. You take care of the threats of the outside world, the complexities, the difficult negotiations. You protect her not only from external dangers, but also from the burden of strategic responsibility. She is free to flourish in her creativity, her passions, her femininity, because you carry the heavy shield of strategy and planning. This dynamic doesn't make her feel trapped, it makes her feel immensely privileged and protected. Dependence masquerades as devotion. She doesn't obey you because she must, but because she blindly trusts that your leadership is the surest path to the well-being of both of you. This is the pinnacle of Can's soft dot. By keeping her in this position where she neither needs nor desires to explore the full extent of her independent power, you have cemented your role as undisputed leader, not through force, but through overwhelming competence and foresight. You have engineered a reality in which your presence is not just desirable, but essential to maintaining the order and prosperity you both enjoy. And this carefully cultivated dependence, this feeling that her well-being is intrinsically tied to your leadership, organically transforms into the most cohesive force of all. It grows into a fierce loyalty, not to an equal, but to the authority figure who has proven to be her ultimate protector. And understanding how that loyalty is forged and utilized is what separates princes from true kings in Thismond game. Topic 6. Loyalty to the authority figure or protector. Loyalty is not a feeling that appears by magic. It is the logical and calculated, the result of a Mali strategy well executed. It's the harvest you reap after sowing security, emotional control, and validation. The common man demands loyalty, demands it, and all he gets is a fragile obedience that breaks at the first difficulty. Man of high value, she never asks for it, she builds it. She understands that genuine, fierce loyalty isn't given to an equal. It's sworn to a leader, a protector, a king. Once you've proven yourself the smartest choice, the safest harbor, and the most strategic mind in her universe, her loyalty isn't an option, it's an inevitable consequence. It's thy respect which transforms into devotion. It is the subconscious, the recognition that your best bet in this chaotic min-of life is being on your side of the board. To cultivate and fortify this loyalty, the strategist employs a tactic as old as the world itself. The creation of a kingdom of two. It's about building an us against the world mentality. Subtly but consistently, you frame your union as a bastion of sanity and strength amidst a chaotic, mediocre, or even hostile outside world. Her friends are dramatic, her family doesn't understand your connection, her colleagues are envious competitors. You say this not with bitterness, but with the wisdom of a protector who sees the threats she doesn't. This is a form of handling level. You don't isolate her physically, you isolate her psychologically. You convince her that you are her only true ally, the only one who looks out for her interests. Her loyalty to you then becomes an act of self-preservation for the sanctuary you've both built. The true test of loyalty comes with adversity. A crisis isn't a problem, it's a golden opportunity to cement your leadership. When problems arise, financial, social, familial, the inferior man breaks, shows fear and doubts. The strategist grows. It's at that moment that High's emotion, brighter as her ability to plan, becomes indispensable. Every crisis you navigate together under her leadership is irrefutable proof to her that she backed the winning horse. Machiavelli, I knew that a prince proves his worth not at banquets, but in battle. By being his immovable rock in the darkest of times, you not only win the battle, you win his soul. The gratitude and relief he feels transform into a loyalty so deep it will border on the unbreakable. He will feel bound to you not by obligation, but by a debt of survival. The core of this strategy is to constantly reinforce the indissoluble link between her well-being and your own. Your every achievement isn't presented as a personal triumph, but as a victory for the team. A promotion at work means more security for our future. A successful investment is one step closer to our dreams. You use inclusive language that merges your destinies into a single entity, an entity that, of course, you direct. It dissolves the line between yours and mine, creating ours. By making her a part of your victories and ambitions, you secure her unconditional support. She'll fight for your goals as if they were her own, because you've convinced her that they are. Defending you is defending herself and the future you've promised her. With her loyalty assured, you forged the ultimate shield. You have a defender, an ally, a faithful subject who will look after your interests and defend your reputation. Canha's being consolidated and your throne is safe from common insurrections. You have built a stable and predictable empire. But here lies a trap that many leaders fall into. Stability leads to boredom, and boredom is the silent killer of attraction. The true master of men game, you know that to keep her perpetually hooked, it's not enough to be her king, you must also be her enigma. And it's precisely the art of maintaining a veil of mystery that ensures she never stops feeling like she has to work hard to decipher you and, therefore, to please you. Topic 7. Curiosity and the appeal of the mysterious. You've built an empire based on security and loyalty. You are its king, its protector. But even the most benevolent king can become boring if his playbook is predictable. Predictability is the poison of attraction. The common man, in his desperate need for connection, becomes an open book. He tells you every thought, every fear, every plan. He becomes transparent and therefore disposable. The strategist, the man of high value, understands the principle that Machiavelli aptly to the art of governing. Never reveal all your cards. Mystery is not lying. It is the art of calculated omission. It is a Mali strategy designed so that her mind never stops working, wondering, trying to figure you out. And every minute she spends thinking about you is another minute of that you win in his mental universe. It is the very essence of men's game. Cultivating an aura of mystery doesn't mean being a quiet, sinister guy in a corner. That's for amateurs. The real art lies in being an ever-expanding universe. It's having personal ambitions and projects of which she only knows the surface. It's quietly developing a new skill and revealing it when she least expects it. It's having deep knowledge about an unsuspecting subject. Sometimes, it's simply being unreachable for a few hours without giving a torrent of explanations. This pattern of calculated unpredictability creates spikes of curiosity. It forces her to wonder, what is he doing? What else is there about him that I don't know about? This subtle handling her attention keeps you as the most fascinating object in her reality, preventing her from taking you for granted and forcing her to continually strive to deserve your interest in your full revelation, something that will never come. Mystery is intrinsically linked to the perception of a man who is completely transparent, appears simple, with no hidden agenda or ulterior motives. In contrast, a man who maintains a veil of mystery projects depth. He seems to always have an ace up his sleeve, operating with a secret agenda and superior intelligence. This enigma alone elevates your status and generates a deep connection. I respect you will unconsciously assume that a man with so many layers must be a man of great substance and influence. Emotional control. It's vital to maintain this framework. You must resist the temptation to share your doubts or your strategic moves. You give her fragments, clues, but never the complete map. You let her see the glimmer of the sword, but never the battle plan. The nice guy's catastrophic mistake is seeking intimacy through total vulnerability. He tells you about his insecurities, his failures, his weaknesses, believing that this creates a bond. What he actually creates is a loss of connection. I respect. He turns her into his therapist, not his admirer. In the chess game of relationships, as soon as you show your opponent all your weaknesses, you've lost. Male strategy. The key is to maintain the information asymmetry. You should always know more about her than she knows about you. This doesn't mean being dishonest. It means being the interviewer, not the interviewee. Show genuine interest in her world, while keeping yours selectively private. She'll feel understood and valued, without realizing that thick information remains. firmly in your hands. By mastering the art of mystery, you become an endless source of interest. You are the mountain she will always want to climb, unaware that the peak is constantly shifting. You have secured her loyalty with your protection, and now you have captured her imagination with your enigma. She is not only loyal to you, she is fascinated by you. But the human mind has an even deeper longing than solving a puzzle. It yearns to be part of an epic story, a narrative with a higher purpose. And if you, as the architect of your reality, can frame your relationship not as a mere romance, but as a grandiose mission, you will not only have her mind and her loyalty, you will have her unconditional devotion. The kind of fervor that drives people to war. Topic 8. The desire for a romantic narrative and a higher purpose. A strategist may dominate the chessboard, but a true emperor dominates history. People don't die for a king, they die for a flag, for a cause, for a myth. Man of high value understands that the highest form of honest ideological. The common man offers a woman a relationship. The master of the mind game, he offers her a destiny. He knows that the human soul has an insatiable hunger for meaning. That's why he doesn't just build a relationship, but frames it within an epic narrative, a grand mission in which she is the indispensable co-protagonist. Your life together is not a sequence of events. It is the building of a legacy, the conquest of a world that doesn't understand us, the creation of a dynasty. This is the handling at its most sublime. You don't control their actions. You control the purpose that gives meaning to those actions. The creation of this grand narrative is the pinnacle of the Mali strategy. It requires vision and a masterful use of language. Your personal ambitions are reinterpreted as a shared mission. You're not working hard for a promotion. You're fighting in the arena to secure our throne and give us the freedom we deserve. You're not saving up for a house. You're building our fortress, the epicenter from which our empire will expand. You consistently use language that evokes grandeur, destiny, and heroic purpose. In doing so, you invite her to join you on a crusade. She ceases to be a mere partner to become your queen, your advisor, the muse of your saga. She feels special, the chosen part of something much larger than the mundane romance her friends are experiencing. That you well know Machiavelli, for the people to follow their prince. The latter's ambitions must be clothed in the mantle of virtue and the common good. The strategist applies this principle to his kingdom of two. Your desire token, wealth, or status is framed as a noble pursuit for the good of both of you. You want control not out of selfishness, but to protect her from a cruel world. You pursue wealth not out of greed, but to give her the security and experiences no other person could offer. By aligning your goals with a seemingly altruistic and higher purpose, you deactivate her critical radar. Opposing your plans is no longer a simple difference of opinion. It would be like betraying the sacred mission you both share. This generates a level of commitment and devotion that transcends logic and settles into the realm of faith. By becoming the author of this narrative, your role is elevated. You are no longer just her protector or her lover. You are her visionary, her spiritual leader, the architect of her life's meaning. This positioning confers upon you an almost divine authority and a level of irrespect unattainable for the common man. To maintain this framework, your emotional control, it must be absolute. You must project an unwavering conviction in the mission. You are the high priest of the religion you yourself created, and your faith must be the strongest. Any hint of doubt on your part could bring down the entire temple. She will follow you to the ends of the earth, not because you force her, but because you've convinced her that you are the only one who knows the map to the promised land. You've built a fortress for her body, an enigma for her mind, and now a crusade for her soul. You've made her part of a legend. Her commitment is total, her devotion almost absolute. She's invested her entire being in the narrative you've written. You've reached the pinnacle of influence, the true king that moves wills effortlessly. But everything that is valued so intensely comes accompanied by an equally intense fear of losing it. And this primordial fear, the fear of being expelled from paradise, of losing the leader, and with him, the purpose that gives meaning to everything. That fear is the last and most powerful lever a strategist can pull to ensure final and unconditional compliance. Topic 9. Fear of loss and abandonment. To have reached the final circle of power, the ultimate control mechanism. If you've applied the previous 8 points, you've become the central pillar of their existence. You are their security, their emotional compass, their source of validation, their leader, their enigma, and their purpose. You've become indispensable. And herein lies the most potent weapon in your entire arsenal, the fear of losing you. As you well understood Machiavelli, if you cannot be loved and feared at the same time, it is safer to be feared. In this game advanced, you achieve both. She loves you for everything you provide, and she fears you precisely because she is terrified of having it all taken away from her. This fear is not something you create with threats. It is the shadow cast by your own overwhelming worth. It is the ultimate and most powerful tool of Onlinkto. Ensure compliance. The application of this male strategist's not about saying, "I'm leaving you." That's what weak men do, looking for a reaction. The real strategy is a constant demonstration of your own independence and high value. It's about maintaining your own social circle, your passions, your personal mission. so that she's always aware that you're a complete man without her. Your life doesn't revolve around her. Hers, on the other hand, has become integrated into your orbit. This framework creates a subtle but persistent anxiety in her. The certainty that your presence is a privilege, not a right. This controlled uncertainty forces her to always be at her best, to not make mistakes, to strive to be worthy of your continued choice. You don't need to control her. The fear of losing you makes her control herself to calibrate this fear and reaffirm your beacon. You can employ the temperature shift tactic. After a period of great connection, intimacy, and validation, you introduce a brief, inexplicable period of distance. You become a little colder, busier, less emotionally available. The contrast is stark. Their nervous system, accustomed to your warmth, panics. They'll wonder what they did wrong, revisit their every action, and most likely their efforts to regain your favor and attention. This move requires emotional control of steel on your part, to observe her anxiety without giving in. It's a stark reminder of who holds the thermostat in the relationship, and how quickly her world can turn cold if you decide it does. It's a readjustment of power that returns her to a position of supplicant. The ultimate goal of this grand strategy is to position you in her mind as the best offer she ever have. You've woven such a comprehensive web of emotional, psychological, and practical benefits that the thought of losing you is catastrophic. It's not just about losing a boyfriend, it's about losing her protector, her mentor, her leader, her source of purpose, and the architect of her reality. It would be like being expelled from paradise to once again wander the desert of common men. This perception of irreplaceable value is what guarantees you a level of irrespectant, almost absolute cooperation. She won't comply with your wishes out of obligation, but rather out of a survival instinct to preserve the greatest asset in her life. You're no longer playing the game. You've become the game itself. Thus, the fear of loss is not a starting point. It is the culmination. It is the icing on the cake that seals the entire structure of that you have patiently built. It is the inevitable consequence of becoming a man of high value through Amali Stratoviv. You've built a pyramid. Security is the base. Loyalty and narrative are the body, and the fear of losing you is the sharp point that crowns the work, guaranteeing its solidity. This is the complete map, the 9 keys to the kingdom. By mastering them, you not only attract a woman, but you create a dynamic in which your influence is total. Your respect is negotiable, and your position that of the undisputed king on the throne of your empire of 2.